So June 11 marked my 1-year anniversary on YouTube, and by 1-year anniversary, I don't mean from the date my channel was created, that was sometime in 2016, but the date I uploaded my first serious commentary/review style video, which I both severely regret because, oh my god, it was not acceptable content, and have to respect, because obviously it played a major role in getting me where I'm at today. I could never have expected when I posted that video that I would end up where I am now in what feels like such a short time later. The past year has been beyond crazy for me. I've done things that I never imagined I would get to do, I met a lot of people I never could have dreamed of meeting otherwise, and I really have nobody else to thank but myself. Yeah, I can't say I didn't expect it. I'm basically perfect. Of course, I'm only joshing with you guys. All of you who keep watching are the whole reason I'm here, and I cannot express how much I appreciate that. All 14,000 of you, like, holy cow! That's insane! Whether you've been subbed since day one or just popped in yesterday, I absolutely cannot articulate in words how happy I am that you're here. I really hope that I continue to make videos that you enjoy. I think the biggest challenge I faced post-upload is the fact that I have to sit there and watch people comment and think about all the things that I forgot to mention in my script. I'm not a very confident, static person. In case you haven't noticed, I kind of hate taking definitive stances on issues. I'm terrible and argumentative, of course, but deep down, my perceptions and verdicts are always changing. Sure, you may think I sound like I have a grasp of things when I get into a debate, but I really don't, I'm just a jerk. There are very few absolute values and beliefs that I've held consistently all throughout my life, on all degrees of importance and severity. Events are rarely, if ever, black and white. It's totally normal for your views to change over time, and when it comes to the things I talk about, that sort of clarity always happens, especially with drama. New things come out, old things become obsolete. In the theater of the internet, people's lives and culture, rarely anything is absolute. Nearly every video I've made has left me with a point where there was more I wanted to say about the subject at hand, so I decided for this special that I was going to do just that. Today's project is my opportunity to go back through every video I've made and comment on them, offering revisions, new opinions, and thoughts on both the content and the situation surrounding it. It's just gonna be my thoughts, pure and somewhat unfiltered. But enough talking, I've already wasted enough of your time. Without further ado, let's start Scorchle's year in review. Ew. 1,000 times ew. I really can't tell you what I was trying to do with this video. I mean, what I was trying to say didn't really require all that much thought. The design was bad. It's a white Night Fury. It's a white girl Night Fury with blue eyes and sparkly scales. It speaks for itself. This video is honestly a great idea of making something out of absolutely nothing. My main argument for not being able to exist was that evolutionary, the chances of this thing surviving were basically none. Yeah, of course they were. It's a dragon. I know I had an idea with this video, vaguely, but again, the main point could have been expressed in a few words. And god, the redesign was embarrassing. I don't know what I was on a year ago, but I hate it and I want it gone from my life forever. Definitely skip this one. Okay, here's an interesting one. This video is a bit conflicted in my eyes, because I think the stuff I said in it holds up, or at least my intention does, but the production is just, I don't know what happened here. My focus was definitely more on the script, but for some reason my editing software exported the video with the audio way down. It's fine on some devices, but apparently a lot of people just couldn't hear it. I love HitFilm, but I've had a lot of weird mixing errors come up with it in the past that weren't an issue pre-render. Probably not the most thrilling thing in the world, but still something I've been thinking about. YandereDev is a very disappointing case. I know it's a hotly debated thing between his fans and opposers, but truth be told, there is no reason that the production of Yandere Simulator should be going on for as long as it has. Absolutely no reason. He is 100% taking advantage of the situation he is in and drifting further and further away from his goal. Sure, it's sad that he's unmotivated and in this situation, but that's not an excuse. He is not a child. People are paying him under the pretense that he's going to make a game within a specific deadline, which he has repeatedly passed, and they are not getting what they were promised. Whether or not he wants to, he is scamming people. I'm not gonna let him off the hook just because, oh no, the poor baby is just so sad, he doesn't want to work on his game. Hell no, this is a grown man. He's definitely in a pitiable situation. I mean, he has a lot of stress to endure, and the position he's in is unbelievably mentally taxing, but that doesn't change the fact that he is doing all of this at other people's expense. He needs to be held responsible for his actions. I've encountered a lot of Yansim apologists through my video, and I've heard some decent, albeit flawed, arguments against the things I and other people have said. For example, I got one, not too long ago actually, which claimed that the reason Yansim's frame rate and playability is so poorly optimized is because it was designed for higher-end gaming PCs, like many large titles. Sure, it's probably not a good idea to call critics of a game poor, but I can almost respect this person's opinion. Almost. The reason people bring up playability is because it doesn't have to be as slow and painful as it is. This isn't just me making anecdotal generalizations, this is a fact. We've seen YandereDev source code on multiple verifiable occasions, and programmers, actual learned programmers, have reputably confirmed that the game is poorly coded and includes a plethora of unnecessary commands which bog down any system it runs on. The problem isn't that it runs poorly on most computers, well, it sort of is, but that's besides the point. The problem is that it doesn't have to. One could create the exact same game in far less time with far less unnecessary code and have it run much more smoothly on even the most incapable devices. It's not just a problem with the players, either. If you look back on YandereDev's post regarding the tiny build programmer he had working with him, he mentioned how his entire purpose for recruiting them was to clean up his code and convert it to a more convenient language because he was getting to a stage in his development where loading up the game every time he wanted to make a small change or update took hours. It took hours for YandereDev to load his game when the first rival hasn't even been completed. This dude literally couldn't even work on his own game because he is so awful at his job. There's a reason the grand majority of early video game concepts are as rudimentary as possible. Generally, when you're making a game, your first step is to implement the basic mechanics, debug them as effectively as possible, and then move up onto the skeleton. The earliest versions of most games are usually quite minimal when compared to their final builds. Minecraft didn't start out with nearly as many features as it has today, but even in its earliest playable modes, it was mostly a complete game. The developers knew their limits and made a product which tried its best to surpass them. It was only with the company's acquisition and growth did it implement new updates and add so much functionality, thus becoming self-sustaining. It's a general rule of thumb not to bite off more than you can chew. In developing his game, YandereDev chose, instead of giving the program a goal and an end state while the mechanics were agreeably simple, to stuff it full of unnecessary extra features. It's inefficient, for one, but not only has it exhausted YandereDev's system, he's gotten himself to a point where implementing rivals requires deliberately working around every single buggy, poorly optimized murder method in the game. He never had a stable foundation which he could work around and add to, and as a result, the game is not only insanely slow, but also messy and restrictive. He's literally programming the game backwards. At this rate, I don't think Yansim is ever going to be finished in any acceptable form. Don't get me wrong, I hope it is. I'm not rooting for this game to fail by any means, but the possibilities of it coming to fruition are very slim at this point. By all accounts, it just doesn't seem possible. But I don't know, anything could happen in, the next 5 years? A decade? We might see a playable beta in our lifetime, who knows? I really just hope the people that are giving their money to this guy and getting virtually nothing in return can find some sort of compensation for their time and dedication. Other than that, I don't really have much sympathy for YandereDev. But on to the next topic. It seems like every time I think about mentioning Butch again, something else goes down with him. Like, legitimately, I was just about ready to finish the script when out of nowhere, Oaxis gets brought back from the dead again. Before I actually get into what happened, I want to take a little bit of time to talk about my side of the whole situation. Starting from the beginning, I really did not expect the Butch video to go anywhere in user attention. The video was purely a passion project, I guess you could say, between myself and a close friend of mine. We just thought Butch was egotistical and dumb and wanted to make a video clowning on him. I cannot tell you how absolutely unbelievable it felt when the Oaxis controversy happened and basically everyone started agreeing with us. It was actually kind of cathartic, in a really messed up way. As for the video itself, I wouldn't say I'm really proud of it. I don't think it holds up very well. My presentation was all over the place and my script meandered way too much, more than usual anyway. I don't think it really fits the style of my current content at all, but hey, you know what? It's a milestone. It's a staple of where I came from and how I can improve moving forward. Plus, it's a way to remember how much fun that whole process was. Trust me, if I could go back to that time and relive that experience, I'd do it in a heartbeat. Super fun. I created that video during a really weird time where everyone was conscious of Butch because of his weird Kickstarter campaign, but at the same time everyone still sorta respected him because the Oaxis situation hadn't derailed yet. The Oaxis bombs didn't drop until like a week later. It felt really weird to be a part of this strange event, but it made me realize an important lesson in YouTube. Don't let drama consume you. Seriously. Step away and take a breather and just let the situation play out naturally. Don't let your entire life revolve around it. Don't let yourself take too much pleasure in someone else's suffering, no matter how awful they are. Trust me. I am no saint, and I am just as susceptible to the ever-marching call of the chicken fight as anyone else, but you have to realize that these situations involve real human beings who are suffering real human consequences, often as innocent victims of circumstances they can't control, and for the sake of them and yourself, it is best if you take time to leave the situation alone and don't track the culprit's every move like you're obsessed. There's a little self-care tip for you guys. That being said, let's take today to dive back into the drama again! Whoa, beating a dead horse! So, in the year that's passed since I last covered this, you might be wondering what sort of progress Butch has made on his streaming service, which was initially projected to come out in 2020. The answer to that is absolutely nothing. The most recent status update we got concerning the service was in the form of an email newsletter distributed to supporters. We'll talk about that in a minute. Another somewhat update came in the form of a new trailer on the Oaxis.tv website, which is, oh my god. I don't want to play the whole trailer here for reasons I'll explain momentarily, but regardless, I'll do my best to give an explanation of why this 50-second clip manages to do basically everything wrong. I recommend pausing the video quick to check out the site and watch it for yourself. It literally takes less than a minute. Okay, has it been seen? Nice, sweet, let's go! So, let's break this down. The trailer starts with a graphic displaying all the different types of content Oaxis will have to offer. Immediately, something is off. The sheer amount of things listed is clearly meant to allude to the vague promise that Oaxis will be a platform for every single type of content, something it was intent on claiming from the days of the Kickstarter. It's not the most pressing problem in the trailer, but the overconfidence and apparent overestimation is both outwardly concerning and incredibly ironic. Next problem. So, immediately after the intro slide, we dive right into a collection of clips representing what will supposedly be available on the service. Again, there is something wrong with this almost instantly. A grand majority of the content shown is from movies that Butch almost certainly does not own the rights to use. I mean, just speaking realistically, do you honestly think that Disney gave him the rights to use Toy Story in his trailer? Toy Story! Yes, he legitimately did that. He used Toy Story. And that's not all. Of all the supposed entertainment in that trailer, pretty much all of the stuff that was his came from the Noog Network, his other entertainment app. So all of the properties Oaxis will allegedly offer were either stolen or recycled. That's great. Now, I don't agree with most of copyright law. I think it's a system that's designed to benefit corporations and take legal authority away from individual artists. Copyright law was not designed with the well-being of creators in mind, and I personally think that it should either be redefined or completely eradicated. I don't care what you believe about it either way, that's just how I feel, and I figured it would be best to be transparent for the sake of this discussion. Regardless, though, of my feelings about it and my usual inclination to side with the users instead of the holders, I absolutely do not agree with or condone what Butch is doing here. Making the claim that your platform owns the right to things it absolutely does not is still completely illegal, for starters. It matters that it's illegal because, well, first of all, it's illegal, and second of all, it's the most blatant case of false advertising you could commit. Even now, a year into production, Butch is making outrageous promises that he can't keep in order to pique interest and keep money flowing into his project. He's still lying through his teeth to the people who are giving and have given him money. If you think this is the worst news we could have possibly gotten concerning the state of Oaxis, then oh boy, I am excited to inform you that it is not over. I want you to direct your attention next to the newsletter I mentioned earlier. There is currently an option on the Oaxis Entertainment website to apply for email updates from Butch and his crew, which seem to be connected directly to his daughter, Carly Hartman. I'm not entirely sure how frequently it runs, but given the relative radio silence basically everywhere else Butch is connected, it seems like this is the only place ordinary people and fans have been getting inside knowledge about the program, if at all. Like, seriously, I haven't been able to find anything else online from Butch concerning Oaxis since July of last year. But regardless, we aren't here to talk about the things that he hasn't said. On the contrary, let's take a look at the things he has for once. We also want to update you on the building of the platform. We continue to have weekly meetings with the platform developers so that we are tracking the platform's construction progress. Our first phase of building the platform is called the discovery phase. Basically, this process informs us of what exactly we technically need to deliver the high-quality entertainment platform we envisioned. God, that's a lot of platforms. In this process, we've discovered that in order for us to have all the bells and whistles we'll need to be competitive in this space, the Oaxis platform will cost much more than was originally quoted for us. With that being said, we will at some point very soon have to stop the build while we raise more funds. Excuse me? Butch! This is the one thing you don't do! One of my initial theories about Oaxis was that the Kickstarter was just a publicity stunt. Why? Well, if you recall back to earlier, I mentioned Butch's previous platform called the Noog Network. It was an app which was created to serve a very similar purpose to the projected intent of Oaxis, to provide a safe space for children where they could get all the entertainment they could ever want in one place. It was a mobile game with shows. What more could a kid possibly ask for? Apparently, they can ask for a lot more because the app never really got off the ground. It was an ambitious concept, and until I actually buy the app and test it for myself, look, I'm sorry I don't have 99 cents to spare right now, I'm very poor, I'm going to assume it was executed with relative prowess. But the fact of the matter is, Butch's recognition and appeal isn't going to carry a project of that scale all on its own. It takes time to grow any platform or app generally from the ground up, and he got a decent boost from his notoriety, but it clearly wasn't on the level that he was anticipating, and he really seems to have abandoned it. The idea he had was just way too much. The similar goals between the two projects, and the plethora of reused new content, led me to believe that Oaxis is his bigger, grander stab at the strange, vague dream. Butch didn't get the start he wanted, so he decided that the best course of action was to make a new project entirely from scratch. In my eyes, the Kickstarter honestly seemed like a publicity stunt. I mean, come on, didn't the whole last-minute funding theme seem really sketchy? He probably had backseat investors waiting in the shadows, which I don't think really is technically a bad thing, but it just seems really off to make a crowdfunding campaign when a great portion of the money ended up coming from sources outside his audience. You know, the people he was aiming the campaign towards. It just gave the whole thing an air of artificialness. But this whole shortage of money thing kind of throws a wrench in that theory. It's still possible, but the fact that they are allegedly canceling production until further notice lends credence to the idea that they actually did severely misinterpret their startup costs and are actually just big idiots, which, well, it's a lot more boring, but still entirely plausible. What did they spend all that money on? I do not know. Hopefully we'll be able to see in the future. But that's basically all I wanted to talk about with Oaxis. I really hope this isn't the end of the platform. A small part of me really wants this project to roll out to completion. I really just cannot get enough of this stupid thing. But if it is, I guess we can all say, we told you so. Let's move on to the next thing. I don't really have much to say about the next two videos I made, so I'll just combine them into one segment. The one about memes is something I'm very tempted to revisit in the future. I feel like the points I made in that video were just very uninteresting, and overall I have a lot of the same issues with production as I do with most of my other early videos. The main thing that's stopping me from just completely redoing it is the fact that I'm not entirely sure what the follow-up or / revised video would be about. Like, I know the general concept of what I feel about the topic and what I'd probably say, I'm just not sure I feel passionately enough about it to have another go. As for the common sense one, I think it's fine. There isn't really much else to talk about there, so I'm just gonna leave it alone, like, that should be left. These videos kinda get left in the background of my memory, but if they're your favorites for some unknown reason, I guess let me know so I can remember to make more similar stuff in the future. I want to include a variety of things, even if they aren't the most popular or talk about the most current drama. But enough about boring video essays, let's get back to commentary! Oh boy, I've been dreading getting to this one. If I had to remove one video out of my library, it would definitely be this one, just because it feels the most abrasive and out of line for my current content out of basically everything I've made. Sure, the Butch video and the original How to Train Your Dragon video were weird and bad, but I feel like they at least have something going for them. I don't know what that is, but, well, it's something. The Spechie video just kind of rubs me the wrong way looking back at it. I think it rubbed a lot of other people the wrong way too. I don't know why I decided it would be a good idea to take an aggressive, sarcastic approach to something that was supposed to be a genuine attempt at empathy with someone, but good God does it make me feel embarrassed. It was honestly just uncalled for. I guess it was a way of projecting my own issues with my former self back onto me. I have no clue. It was just sorta came out that way, and I severely wish it didn't. I feel like I upset and alienated a lot of people, rightfully, just by being mean and annoying. I aspire not to do that when talking about things anymore. Unless they're really dumb. In that case, you can't stop me. In spite of my personal problems with it, though, a lot of you actually said that you really liked that video and that it was your introduction to my content. I'm really glad that you see something in it which I don't anymore. It makes me confident that my message wasn't completely lost in translation, and that, alongside its status as a historical artifact, is the main reason I'm keeping it up for the future. There will never be a video that everyone agrees with when they see it, but I'm glad that it appealed to a great portion of you all. I'll cherish you forever and ever. Oh, and for the record, some of that art advice was actually really bad. I did not explain it right at all. Actually, you know what? Just for the hell of it, I'm gonna do a red line of all my red lines from that video. There we go. One thing I really wish I'd mentioned when talking about her art instead of just trashing her was about her tracing issue. At the time of making that video, there were various instances where her art, both past and recent, was similar to apparent reference photos. I'll show some examples here. With all that being said, however, what Spechie was up to 9 months ago does not reflect her behavior today. She has made statements regarding her desire to change and grow, which I would love to hold her to. I want her to be happy and successful and to emotionally mature as a person. Actions do speak louder than words, though, and whether or not she has truly changed since then will be up to us to decide when the time comes. I wish her the best of luck while we're here. Oh god. Oh lord. Oh geez. Gacha is probably one of the weirdest topics I've covered. It's always so strange to stumble across a community of people that is so incredibly bizarre and outside of your realm of social understanding, especially when the participants exist well beyond your age range and cultural atmosphere. There will never be a time in my life where I understand the appeal of gacha, and I've come to accept that. I don't want to be one of those people that makes fun of kids because I'm completely consumed with nostalgia and dissatisfaction with my current life. Every generation has their stupid things. It's hard to put a level of objective quality on just about anything, especially entertainment. Everyone's experience is different. But really, honestly, the gacha games are utter garbage. The sprites look bad, the clothing pieces overlap in places they shouldn't, the customization and posing system is remarkably unintuitive, the main gameplay is uninteresting, and the mini-games are so basic and cheap that they make awful Newgrounds Flash games blush. The sound effects and music are absolutely grating, and in the visual department, God, what happened? I legitimately cannot believe that this app is so popular among children. I get that the developer is just one guy, and I don't want to bash an amateur game dev. I relate to the struggle, but this guy's game is absurdly popular. Can you imagine how much money he's making off of it? And his business tactics are just, well, there's something. A big part of the reason that all of his apps feel so underdeveloped is probably the fact that he is constantly abandoning old projects and starting new ones. He releases the first build of a new app one day, maybe updates it once or twice to stuff in new presets, then announces that he's making a brand new game and focusing all of his energy on that. I mean, we've gotten so many gacha games within the span of, what, a year? Half a year? I can name at least 3. This guy's obsession with churning out new games and fleeing the scene of his old ones leads me to believe that his incompetence spreads well beyond programming. I wouldn't be making fun of this dude if it was the first build of his first game, but he basically refuses to stick with development of an app beyond the earliest stages. He half-bakes an idea, drops it, and then just leaves. But hey, clearly it seems to work, so what do I know? One thing that repeatedly baffles me about the gacha games is how plain awful the studio function is. Most of the people who play gacha use it to make narrative-driven videos with their anime character bases. I mean, obviously, that's what both of my essays on the subject have been about. You'd think that with the level of popularity these programs have achieved, the function of the app dedicated to setting up videos would be a primary focus, right? Well, I'm happy to inform you that the main way to capture your character's actions is through screenshotting. There isn't even a save canvas option or anything. You have to screenshot every single frame! You can't easily customize your characters in the studio menu either, or save default poses. Every time you want to change their expression, you have to go back into the editor menu and search through every preset they have, and then pray to God that you remembered what their default eyes were. It's so overcomplicated and so frustrating. There is a separate skit mode on Gacha which appears to try and solve the studio problem, but it's overly complicated to use and much more restrictive, so I hardly see the point. Long story short, it's an awful app with awful people on it, so go figure. There isn't really much else I wanted to say about the gacha tubers. They're still the worst. I'd repeat myself all over again about how much I despise them, but I am downright sick of not all gacha tubers' comments. I'm ready to barf. Next topic. I just wanted to get this out of the way before anyone says something. I didn't specifically mean that the robots are gay. I think there is a lot of implied tension between the two characters, but how you want to interpret that is entirely up to you, and I respect your opinion on it. They're just robots. Boy, it feels great to get off my chest. Beyond that, I don't really have much else to say about the video besides the usual. Production on the audio especially could have been better. It always could be better. But this one was one of my favorite videos I've made, just because the subject matter is something that's really fun to me and I enjoyed doing. I put a lot of effort into trying to make it visually interesting, something I hope paid off for everybody who gave it a look. The fact that it's at 7K right now is actually pretty surprising to me, just because of how the subject matter is so exclusively interesting to me. It's not a video I expected would do very well, but hey, anything is possible. I'm just happy people found it interesting. I initially planned to do a series of videos about Transformers after this one, but I never really got around to it because there was a ton of other things going on in my life, and I didn't want to disrupt my typical variety with a bunch of weird, nerdy things. I'll probably do something Transformers related, maybe, eventually, but we'll just have to see what happens. On to the next thing. This video was an absolute beast. As soon as this controversy dropped, I wanted to cover it on the sheer fact of how strange and gray it was. It brought into question one of the most sacred contracts between a YouTuber and their audience: integrity in advertisement. 2018 was an interesting year for YouTube, and in order to bring some of the stranger things that happened in perspective, I wanted to tie it all together to what I thought was the most interesting controversy of the period. I think the segment that made me the most nervous to post in the video were the voice acting parts. Like, I had a fun idea for the video to give it a little bit of extra edge, but I kind of forgot during production and structuring that I cannot voice act, so that was fun. But once again, you guys actually seemed to enjoy it, and I had some people telling me that they were really interested in the narrative, so that makes me really happy. Overall, it seems to be something that less people were interested in watching, what with the length and the outdated subject matter, but still a product which those who sought it out could enjoy. That's what I always aspired to do, so I'm extremely glad. No comment. I stand by this completely. The Polar Express is a horror movie, and you cannot convince me otherwise. Nearing the home stretch! My opinions changed a lot during the production of this video, but I think the core belief I ended up presenting was still one I hold today. Game theory is just one of those channels that people definitely love to hate. I'm not saying this because I'm bitter at game theory critics, I really don't enjoy their content either, but people have a bit of a predisposition to jump at any potential for controversy or scrutiny when it concerns Matthew Patrick's. His attitude really is just that hateable, I guess. Big channels and media conglomerates on YouTube are a very touchy subject with people, and that's something I understand. If you believe that all big channels have something inherently wrong with them, then that's your own moral sense speaking, and I won't challenge you on that, but make sure you're being consistent with that belief. All too many people are content just to pick and choose whenever it concerns YouTuber morality. Like, why do people get upset about MatPat existing while letting channels like PewDiePie off the hook? We have this perception that game theory is one of YouTube's greenlit channels, while PewDiePie is not, and while this is probably true on a surface level, MatPat is just as capable of being harshly critical of his platform as PewDiePie is. Neither channel is a truly independent creator, both employ resources of editors and, in cases of specific videos, a whole team, and both have made an absurd amount of money on YouTube. PewDiePie might not get YouTube's special treatment like he once did, but they are still both massive channels, and by the consequence of what that entails, they both receive tremendous benefits. I'm not saying that you should hate PewDiePie or that he's a fake, I'm just saying that the two channels have situations more similar than you might think. PewDiePie just focuses his content a lot more on the individual, one-on-one element, while MatPat is heavily invested in the production. I respect everyone's stances for taking one over the other on a moral level. It's ultimately your decision to make the final verdict, but personally, I perceive the tendency to hold both channels under vastly different standards to be hypocritical. You can prefer whoever's content you like, but when it comes to making a definitive moral argument to back up your subjective preference, it is never helpful in your case to pick and choose. Every situation is different, but that doesn't enable hypocrisy. I guess the takeaway from this video should be to separate issues with content from personality. Situations where your perception of one is intrinsically linked to the other exist, but hyperanalyzing and criticizing someone's actions for flaws is never productive. Let action influence your outlook, and vice versa. Did you really think I was just gonna skip over my magnum opus? Boku no Shapiro Academia is something I'm extremely proud of, period. I hate it immensely, and God is the program a pain to work with, but for something that I made entirely out of spite, I think it turned out quite well. It's also the only video I've ever made which did not start out with a net loss of subscribers for the channel. That's not important, I just thought it was a fun fact. To avoid spoilers, I plan to make more episodes in the future when I have the time and resources to stream again. The next step in improving this creation is to employ voice actors, so I guess if anyone's interested, contact me wherever I can be found. If you want a hint, my social medias are a great place to do that, especially if you follow me first. And now we've come full circle. This has been one of my most controversial videos to date. I honestly wasn't expecting that. Reviews are an incredibly subjective form of presentation, and yet additionally a highly cutthroat one. I understand on a base level, but it still kinda bums me out to know that a lot of people were upset by my thoughts. Like, I'm sorry! I just didn't think that the movie was good! I legitimately apologize if you felt hurt by that. I'm not being sarcastic, I genuinely feel bad. Well, I guess life just sucks sometimes. You can never please everyone, and that's just how things are. No need to aspire to. I feel like I've already talked about How to Train Your Dragon enough today, so I'll just keep this last one short and sweet. Both starting and ending my first year on YouTube with videos about a franchise that holds a lot of meaning to me is pretty fun and zany. Not a lot of people get to do that purely by accident. And speaking of endings, it's about time I do that for this video before it drags out for too long. I want to remind everyone who's watching, and everyone who isn't, that I'm unbelievably thankful for all the support and time you've given me. You all encourage me to move forward in every aspect of my creative development. It is the greatest feeling in the world to put out entertainment and content that I adore making and to receive as much positive feedback from the rest of you. Over 14,000 subscribers in a year is pretty insane for my first start. I hope that we continue to grow in the future, and you all that are already here continue to grow along with me for the ride. Thanks for being awesome. But with all that being said, it's time to end this video. Please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing. I'm a small channel and every bit of support helps, if you have the time, of course. And I hope you all have an absolutely blessed day. You're like, summer? I have no clue. Bye!